Alright, so I had to mock up my seats, and it was a pretty simple process. As you know, my floor is on a slant, on a slight slant, so I knew I had to go up 1.5 inches higher on that side, and or on the outsides, of course, going in. Now, the bizarre thing about this floor is, my braces are thin in some areas, they're thick in some areas. They're all 12 inches apart, so it shouldn't be too bad. But the slant was, I thought I had it all figured out. So I went and bought some inch by inch square tubing, and I thought, I'm going to build a bench going the whole way across, and then I'll mount my seats to that bench, which, doesn't sound like a bad idea, because then I thought, well, I can have something in the center. If I want to do like a solid bench seat going the whole way across, maybe I can do that, because I like the idea of a bench seat being in a car like this. Now, this car, if you guys saw the earlier episodes, it came with these Balmer seats, and the Balmer seats have real sharp edges, and I didn't particularly like them. Like, they don't adjust, they're just kind of there, and they're made for racing or whatever, but can't imagine, they're not very comfortable. But as I was browsing around, I'm kind of on a budget. Like, just these brackets, like these two pieces of steel, ran me like $100, and just to mount the seats is like $150. I had to go get more gas for the welder, and I wanted to get some more bolts. I have to bolt them down with grade 8 bolts. And as I was looking for a seat, I thought, do I want to spend another like $500 to $1,000 on seats? And I was looking at used ones on all the major, you got your Craigslist, your Facebook Marketplace, your eBay, and I was just looking around on Google everywhere I could, and I kept coming across my Balmer seats, the ones that I have, like the actual ones, and they're like $600. And I was like, that doesn't excuse using them if you don't like them or anything, but I thought, like, I have these $600 seats, like, they do look kind of old school, so I decided to go with them. And then I decided that the bench seats couldn't be, like, I couldn't do the bench idea because a shifter is going to be going in between. But this is a lot like woodworking. Like, if you watch my old videos of building end tables or coffee tables or anything, I build frames like this all the time out of woods, and I use a Craig jig. This is basically the same thing, only I'm just using a welder, and I have to leave spaces for the bolts to go on the outsides. Ultimately, after changing my mind about 30 times, I came up with the idea to just build 4 of these squares, and then have a brace going through the center. Put 2 of them together and put a brace going through the center, and then that's going to be my seat brace. Very simple concept. And I didn't really want to do it that way, but had I think I overkilled it as far as structure goes. Like, these are heavy, they're very, very strong. I probably made these stronger than I made my framing for my floor. I got a little carried away, but I didn't want to make it with thin metal, to hold me up, and thinking about like getting on the gas and like going back in my seat. You gotta have strong bracing for your seats. You can't. I don't want to just. And the old seats. If you guys watch my old video of where we're tearing the car apart, and I ripped the old seats out, I literally ripped them out with zero effort. Like, they had them self-tapped into the sheet metal, not even into any bracing. Like, they just used self-tapping screws. Had you had a powerful engine and you go off the line, like, those seats would have just ripped right out of the floor. You would have went into the back seat. So I didn't want to make that mistake. I wanted to make this like a one-time thing. Like I want to do it right the first time and not have to go back and fix this mistake. So I really went a little overboard, and I laid some nice beads, and I got this idea to build it almost like a chair, like but not. You'll see these go sideways. It's not like the legs go up and down, but and also, as you know, the floors are at a bit of a slant, so I just cut out some spacers later, for the one side. And it goes at a slant in two different ways. It goes in a slant from the middle to the outside, but it also slants down a bit from the front to the back. So you have to use a level, and I show some of that process, but I level everything up. You want your seats to be level, and I wanted to be at a good height where I could reach the pedals and not be, I don't want to not be able to reach anything. And I don't like sitting too low. I want to be able to see out of the windshield. So I just kind of went about it my own way. I didn't really use any references or go off of anyone else's ideas. I just designed them the way it made most sense to me. But the first welding that I did outside was really, it was a little bit windy out, and I wasn't getting good. I was getting good welds, but like it was just a mess. It looked like flux core welding because my shield gas wasn't shielding my welds. So I brought the party inside and started doing it in here, and it turned out way better. Like it worked out better this way. And I had to, I didn't make them all exactly the same. I went in a little further on some of the brackets because I want to be able to get a drill in there. And everything worked out though. Like the size of the seats and the size of these brackets and the distance that they are away from each other work out that they're exactly on the braces that are in the car. So they're exactly where I need them. It was just luck that I put those braces where I did. I wasn't even planning for this. Had they not been in the right place, I would have just made them longer so that they did reach a brace. But I didn't have to do that. It just worked out great. So I got a little bit lucky. I knew that I had to finish this, this night because I treat this build like chapters, like a book, like or like a video game with levels. Every level is leading up to the engine and the transmission getting put in, and that's like the big boss at the end. Like that's the part where I don't have any knowledge. I don't have any knowledge of any of this stuff, but that's the part that I need a little bit of help with. And this is just another chapter. Like the seats, basically every video you guys see is a chapter. Like the floor was a chapter, the seats are a chapter, the rear end was a chapter, the straight axle was a chapter, although there were a couple chapters on that. But these are all chapters leading up to the end of the story. And I'm really I knew that when I was working on this that there was no way that I could go to sleep that night without the chapter being finished. And I did go to sleep without it being finished because I wasn't 100% done with it. I got both of these brackets done the first night, but the passenger seat wasn't mounted in the first night, so I came out the next day and got it mounted in. But it was literally just drilling a few holes into the braces and bolting it down, which I make it sound like it was easy. I had all kinds of problems with that as well, because it worked out where I drilled the holes were, down through the floor. They were right on top of the frame, so I had like an inch gap to get my fingers and a nut in there to go on top of the bolts, and then it just barely worked out. It's really coming down to, I mean, there's a lot left to do, don't get me wrong. And I'm going to run into a lot of things that I'm not really accounting for in my notes and, in my head. I'm sure I'm going to run into, a lot more. But right now, as I know, to sum it up quickly, I feel like I'm getting to the point where I feel like after these seats are done, I have to take them back out, and then I have Dynamat, which is not Dynamat, it's called like Kill Mat or something like that. It's on its way. It's sound deadening stuff. It's on its way to my house through Amazon. I have a dual master cylinder, brake master cylinder. I have brake line, and I have seam seal, all on their way here. And once all of that's done, I have to put in a rear firewall, and then I have to carpet the car. Well, I guess before I do any of that, I still need to figure out a tunnel piece for in between the seats. That little piece on the floor. It's like a 12-inch by 12-inch piece, and I'm just looking for a street sign laying around somewhere. I hate to buy more metal, but if I have to, I have to. But I need to do that as well, and then I can carpet the floor. And then after that's done, I got to run a fuel line, and after I run the fuel line, I'll brace the fuel cell and the battery and run the electrics, and then I can get the transmission and the engine in here, and then it's a matter of hooking everything up. I mean, God knows with the electric, I'm not prepared for that. I'll just take it as it comes, but I'll have to do all that, and then it's basically ready to drive and stop at least. And then if all goes well and everything works and everything's kind acceptable, I guess. I know nothing's going to be perfect about this car, but if it gets to a point where it's safe to drive and stop, then I'll insure it and register it and actually drive it, every now and again. But in Pennsylvania, we have pretty rough weather for like 5 months out of the year, so you really don't get to, I won't be driving this, like I'll only be driving this for like half the year, and it's not going to be that much. So my insurance is basically going to be based upon like a 3,000 mile a year, maybe not even, it depends on, we'll see. I can't even think about that right now. Like there's too much to do, but I'd like to get this to a point. I got my antique plates in for the 58 today, which is really cool. So that's what has me thinking about all this, because this one will be next when it's done. If you're drilling through steel like I am, like, I don't know why I was trying to get away with just using my cordless drill. It's so stupid, I didn't do this with the next one. The next one I used my cord drill, and it just blew right through it like nothing. I stood here, and this is time lapse times like 4, and it just took forever and a lot of effort. I think I was sweating by the time I was done. It's just stupid. I should have just put it on the floor and put my weight down and used my cord drill like I did with the second one. But ultimately, that's why I did the second one that way, because I knew that this was stupid. The more I got into doing this, the more I was accepting these seats and kind of liking the nostalgic look of them. I mean, I don't know if there's anything nostalgic about it. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like they look like, older style race seats. They don't look like something that you'd throw. I mean, you definitely wouldn't throw them in a modern car. That's for sure. So, I mean, I feel like they look the part, and they'll work out just fine. I'm hoping by the next episode I'll be starting these will be taken back out, obviously, but I'm hoping to be starting the floor, the carpet, like dynamating it. I keep saying dynamat because that's the brand I'm used to seeing, but sound deadening the floor, and I'm going to be seam sealing it, painting it, soundproofing it, sound deadening it, not soundproofing it, and carpeting it. And I don't know if that'll all be one episode or if I'm going to break it up into a couple. I've been trying to cram a little more work into each episode instead of, like, I used to just do little bits at a time, but like I could have broke my floor up into like 3 or 4 episodes, but I just tried to do it in one. Like, I'm doing the seats in one. I'm going to try to do the carpeting, like the rest of the floor in one. I do need to, there's another thing that I keep forgetting about because it's probably going to be like the last thing I do, but I still don't know what I want to do about my hood and how I'm going to latch like my front end. Like I might hinge the front end of the car and just lift up the whole front, and so that it's easier to get to the engine instead of going hoodless and not having a hood on there. I might weld everything together, weld the hood on to the body, and then add some structure, and then just cut a hole into, around the intake. But I don't know. It's definitely what I planned on doing since I started this. Like when you have an old gasser, like that's kind of like a must. Like, but I mean, it's not necessarily a must, but like I feel like it is. I think it looks cool, and it serves its purpose. Like if you ever need to get to that engine and work on it, you can just lift your whole entire front end up. You can get to any part of your engine instead of reaching down in there. So that's the plan anyway. Guy I watch, I shouted him out a couple videos ago. Days of Glory Shop Works. That's DAZE of Glory Shop Works. He just did his, and he did his pretty neat. He like cut it down the sides a bit, almost like a semi truck or something, and it looks really awesome. He did a great job, and it was his first time doing it. So I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it quite like he did. God knows how I'm gonna go about it because my frame's different and everything. But I do need to do that. But yeah, if you're interested, go check out his video on it. It's pretty awesome. I'm actually really stoked, that there's someone else. I complained in like my first 15 episodes that there was no one out there that was building one of these. There was no references. I couldn't even find hardly any pictures on them or anything. And here, there's a guy, Days of Glory. He's actually building one, and it's like the same car. It's really, it's like a dream come true to see his take on how he does it, and it's really cool. I just watch these guys and these other channels, and I see how they do things, and then I'm like, oh man, like I probably should have done it that way. but it is what it is, you know. It's all learning experience. But in my case, I have zero experience with anything fabrication or anything cars really, other than hooking systems up and putting manifolds on engines, stupid stuff like that, exhausts. But other than that, that's another thing. Now that I bring that up, I do have to figure out an exhaust. I don't know how I'm going to go about that either. I don't plan on running exhaust to the back. I'd like to have it come out the sides, you know, like a true gasser, or I don't know if that makes it a true gasser, but I'd like to make it come out the sides. But there they are, and they're in there solid, man. I mean, you can't rip these out. They will rip you out. That didn't make any sense. They're in there solid. Take my word for it, and they're level. You know, I used a level. I made sure they were perfectly parallel, and they're exactly where they need to be. I'm gonna have to figure out some seatbelt situations, which I can bolt things right onto the side of those frames. And I will say, and you'll see right here, it's a little tight. These seats are hard to get in and out of because they cut you. The sides are sharp as hell. But like the steering wheel is huge in this thing. As you can see, it's like the size of my whole upper body. And so I'm sitting right where I want to sit. I mean, I've tried this out a million times before I burn it in. And I'm sitting right where I want to sit. I can reach everything. It's comfortable. I'll be able to shift from right there. And the only thing, I wish I could tilt this steering wheel a tad, but I don't really care. Like, I'm going to be the only driver of this car. No one else is going to drive it. And if I'm comfortable, that's all that matters, I feel like. You know, I don't need it to be comfortable for anyone watching me drive it. Like, you know, so it's good for me, and that's where they're staying. Yeah, I mean, they definitely grew on me. I got these rubber pieces, this like rubber edging that's going to go along that metal, so that they don't slice you every time you get in and out of the car. But that's I'm waiting for. That's also coming in, you know, from Amazon with all the other floor stuff. So I'll be putting that on as well. And I do have the old seat belts, but I'm not sure if I'm going to utilize them or not.